Well, we're in a yellow lady slipper, yellow moccasin patch today. Got a lot of cloud cover. It's a little light rain. Perfect day for shooting these flowers. Lots of mosquitoes too. It's June 14th. I had checked these just a few days ago and they weren't even close to being opened then. So they've opened up within the last 3 days. It's got to be one of the places in the state that's the last for these to open up. I know to the south of here and to the west of here, they've been posting pictures of this year's yellow moccasins for a couple of weeks already. So as in standing with the rest of the orchids that we have, this tends to be a little bit later than the rest of the state. So fine by me. It gives us a chance to enjoy them up here during a pretty good part of the season. These are the bigger of the two varieties of yellow lady slippers that we have. These are the larger ones. I'm hoping that within a few days I'll go to my patch where we have the smaller ones and get some shots of that. It's interesting talking to a couple of the orchid experts around that it's a little difficult to tell sometimes which variety of yellow that you're looking at when the sizes vary a lot, because they do have a tendency to cross-pollinate, and you'll have the large ones, you'll have the small ones, and you'll have some varieties that are in between, kind of half and half. So it's not always 100% sure which one you have unless you get to some like this. These are definitely the large variety. Interesting in talking to my friend at the Itasca Lady Slipper Farms, was asking him the other day about these yellows, and he says what tends to happen is that when you get a stretch of weather where you have 5-6 days of 80-degree plus weather, that's a signal for these particular varieties to shut down. So if you have a really warm early part of June, you might have a real short blossoming season for this variety. What happens is they go into hibernation. They shut down and don't flower anymore, and they actually put any energy that they are using into expanding their rhizomes and their root systems to spread out the plants from that way. So we did have a pretty warm early part of June. Had almost a week of some really hot weather up in the mid-80s and 90s. And I know in the other parts of the state, even down where he was at in Itasca County, the yellows shut down almost overnight once they got to the end of about a 6-day stretch there, where they like a little bit of cooler weather, and it's been a little cooler up here, and it looks like we're going to have a few days of some cooler weather, so we should have these blossoming for a while yet. These large yellows like to grow on high ground in well-drained soil. Sandy soil is the best, and most cases I've seen them underneath a jack pine canopy. The undergrowth needs to not choke them out. So if the yellow is 12 to 14 inches high, the undergrowth should be 8 to 10 inches high, so that they grow over and above the top of that. They do need some light during the day, but they don't do well in direct sunlight. From what I understand, about 6 hours of filtered sunlight a day is about the best for them. Here we are with orchid number 2 today. Again, today is June 14th. We've got a green bog orchid and a couple more. They're just starting to open up. Just the slowest flowers on this stem have started to open up. As it ripens further, those will go from the bottom towards the top until the top will finally bloom. There's a lot of confusion in the names with these orchids. There's a green bog orchid, there's a small green bog orchid, there's a tall green bog orchid, and sometimes it's a little tough to tell the difference from one to the other. This particular one is next to a very, very wet swamp. They're called a bog orchid because they're usually seen next to some of these swamps that they're open bogs, maybe along the edge of a lake or whatever. But they don't like the wettest part of that bog. There's usually a transition area where there's a little bit of more solid ground, and these tend to grow on the more solid ground rather than the real boggy part of it. In this particular stretch that I have here, if we were to come back in a week or week and a half, these would be fully blooming, and we would have probably another 4 or 5 dozen along this stretch. They're very common. They're fairly small, and again blend in an awful lot with the surrounding foliage. When the flowers do bloom, they're a little bit brighter green than a lot of the stuff that you'll see around it, and that will usually make them stand out a little bit so that you can see them a little easier. But a green bog orchid, number 2 for today, and very happy to see one. I didn't know if we'd be too early to see this or not, but I got a chance to see it anyway. Well, we scored orchid number 3 today. We're looking at some dragon's mouth. This is also called Arethusa bulbosa. They are related to a Calypso bulbosa. This is the first of the open bog orchids to bloom. We'll have some more a little further down the line, but this is the first one to bloom. We're again August. We are June 14th today. We have a lot that are here. We have a lot that are still unopened yet. I would think that the ones that are blooming have probably been blooming for 3 or 4 days. I know I've seen pictures of people who have posted dragon's mouth in other areas south and west of here that have been out for at least a week. I had one from a friend of mine who posted one from June 6th. So again, we find ourselves at an area where we tend to have late blooming orchids here, which falls real well into my schedule, so no complaints. We are in an open bog here, a very wet open bog. This is one place where if you're going to come and shoot dragon's mouth, you're going to get wet. There's just no two ways about it. To begin with, you'll be standing in water. Secondly, there's really no place to get down and lay down without getting wet. A lot of times I'll bring a tarp into the bog with me and lay down on the tarp, and that helps a little bit, but even with that I still get wet. This is a landlocked bog. Got a lot of tamarack trees in here. Also find pitcher plants and bog laurel and cranberry. Very much a bog environment, atmosphere. I've also actually seen these on floating bog, which is even a more open situation, where if you're not careful you can get really wet. Floating bog is, as it describes, it's this boggy material that is actually extending out over the water, so if you were to slip through and have the bog come out from underneath you, you'd actually go down into the water below it. I've had instances where I've gone down up to my armpits and caught myself on the edge of the bog, and I didn't feel bottom from where I was at. So you do have to be careful, and you do have to wear boots and be prepared to get wet, because you will. This seems to be a very good year for dragon's mouth. This is my favorite spot. I come here every year and I'll find a couple of dozen. This year I bet within sight of where I'm standing right now I can probably see 50, and big groups of them, really nice groups of them. And with the ones that are still open, these should be available to be viewed for at least a couple of weeks down the line. So I'm looking forward. I've got a workshop coming up in about a week, and I'm really excited because this will be one of the highlights of our trip, to see the dragon's mouth here. It's always fun to come into one of the bogs here where you find dragon's mouth. It's such a neat ecosystem. You find stuff here that you won't find anyplace else. Again, I mentioned the pitcher plants, lots of pitcher plants around, bog laurel. Really get up close and personal to the tamaracks here in the landlocked bog. Cranberries, both in the floating bog and on this type. Cranberries, I came here and actually picked cranberries for Thanksgiving last year and had a nice cranberry sauce made out of that. Just absolutely a fascinating ecosystem. So you'll never know what you're going to find in here. I did see a mink frog a little bit ago. I didn't get a chance to get a picture of it. I wasn't quite ready for it, but lots of amphibians that inhabit here, and lots of mosquitoes too. So this has been a great day. It's been a 3 orchid day. I don't think we'll find anything else today. I'm going to go check on some pinks just to make sure that they're still blooming in a spot of mine. But other than that, as far as new orchids, I don't think we'll see anything new. I'm sure we'll see pinks, so that'll make it a 4 orchid day, I guess. But these are starting to be the fun days to be out and finding a lot of stuff. You get to see different parts of the country, different types of ecosystems, and really get down to the nitty-gritty with some of these orchids. So in the meantime, thanks for watching and enjoy.